everybody? Welcome once again to the weekly Poro Report. This is your weekly insight to all things Legends of Runeterra. As always, I am Smithel, one of your co-hosts, along with my co-host Cozer. Before we get too deep into the show, we want to get something a little bit out of the way here. First, we're excited to announce that we've been accepted into the Mobalytics partner program. So again, thank you to all you guys that have been listening to the podcast, checking out the YouTube videos, reaching out to us. Via Twitter, all that good stuff, so we're hoping to continue to use the tools that they provide to the partners to bring you guys, a lot more exciting content in the future. Now, this episode's actually kind of unique. It's a big one for us. This week, we actually have a special guest for you guys. We actually have master player Casanova Hots. Casanova, how you doing here?
Not too bad. A little bit depressed that I didn't hit rank 1 this week, but, it happens. It happens. Can keep trying to chase towards it, but was able to get rank 2, so that felt pretty good.
Awesome.
Able to climb quite a bit.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we definitely were kind of watching you progress through the ladder. And Kozer, I will let you know that people in Twitch are saying that it is muted, so you may have to kind of adjust that on your end. But yeah, we were definitely watching your climb, and I know we were all kind of cheering for you, Casanova, to hit that rank 1. Here after the patch hit. So, I guess tell us a little bit maybe before we get into your climb and what you're seeing or what, you kind of ran into, for anybody that isn't familiar with who you are, and kind of what your background is, maybe can you give us a little bit about that? Like, first, like let's ask, what got you into video games in general? What's been your history?
Yeah, so for video games, I think it all started when I was 3 years old, and my grandfather taught me how to play chess.
Oh, wow, okay.
I was playing strategy games, like chess from a very young age, and I played a bunch of tournaments and stuff growing up throughout elementary school and middle school, and so I was always very big on just playing games. My parents really hated video games, so I didn't actually play video games when I was young too much. But my godfather actually sent me and my brother an Xbox when I was 5, and my parents were really pissed about that. But growing up, they allowed me to play 1 hour a day, and I'd play shit like Fusion Frenzy and Halo, and, these crazy ass games back then. Eventually, I got into World of Warcraft when I was 8 years old and played that a little bit. But it was playing classic World of Warcraft at an hour a day. I obviously didn't get much done.
The grind was real, real.
So
but at 8 years old, I'm sure an hour a day feels like amazing progress.
Oh, it's still so cool. It was the dopest thing ever. But yeah, I really didn't do much. It was probably fucking level 20 or something, climbing the levels, man. But yeah, so that was kind of my introduction into video games. I mean, from there, I played League of Legends for 6 years before moving on to Heroes. But I played all kinds of different titles on the Xbox and on my PC growing up.
So
good, Kozer.
Well, first off, is the stream better now? Okay, because it looks good now.
You are fixed now.
Yes, we're fixed. Okay, so it's a good thing you were recording because we'll have the part that was cut off. Anyways, so when did you really start your career in HOTS? Because I remember we were talking the other day, and I actually thought you were in HOTS competitive from the starting, but you actually told me, no, you started playing a little later on. So when did you actually start the competitive grind?
Yeah, so I was still playing League when HOTS came out. I had tried the alpha. I got in the alpha, and I played a little bit, and I was like, "This game sucks." I hated this game. I thought it was really unrefined, and I felt like there wasn't that much mechanical skill in it when it first was in alpha, and I was like, "No, I mean I like League way more." So I kept playing League for a long time, and it wasn't until I went to college. I went to the University of Utah. And I was playing on the League of Legends team, and the team sucked. I was the only good player on the team at the time. They actually have a great team now, but back then I was Diamond 1, pushing Challenger, and everyone else on the team was Gold or Plat. Okay. So the team was really bad compared to the rest of the field in Collegiate. And I had a bunch of friends that were actually on the HOTS team that wanted to do Heroes of the Dorm. and they were all really good HOTS players, like all top rated on HOTS logs, and they were like, why don't you just come play this with us instead? It's a MOBA. We know you're really good. You'll probably pick it up fast.
Okay.
So because of that, like I was like, okay, well, these are like really good friends of mine. They want me to go play. This will at least be fun, even if we don't do well. So I went and I started playing, and I like learned how to play HOTS from them. And after like a month, probably 2 months, I was the highest rated player on the team, and I was like starting to shot call and stuff. So I like picked it up really fast. I really hit like I really liked the game at that point. I think because I was playing with my friends, I really enjoyed it. But also I like started to fall in love with just kind of the different mechanics and the different maps, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that you could do in the game.
Yeah, and I know that's definitely where Cozer and I first kind of, or at least where I first learned about you. I don't know if Cozer knew you elsewhere apart from Heroes of the Storm. But so, Heroes of the Storm and Legends of Runeterra, first pretty dramatically different games. I mean, completely different genres, completely different companies. What kind of made you want to make the shift from a MOBA, especially HOTS, which is a Blizzard title, to moving towards Riot and starting to really stream and play Legends of Runeterra here recently?
Well, so I've always loved card games. I mean, even growing up, my family would go play Bridge or Cocktail or different kinds of card games with other family friends. And I also, in college as well, used to pay like my internet bills playing Hearthstone tournaments, like online and in person, like local Hearthstone tournaments. So I had played a lot of card games. I really enjoy card games. I think it fits well with kind of the way my mind works when I get really focused on a game. I start to kind of categorize all the information within the game. So it gets to the point where I kind of know every interaction, every different thing that goes on within the game. I used to lab a lot in Heroes and Try mode. And in card games, I think that kind of thing really lends well towards a card game, because you start to kind of remember every single card that could be played and every interaction that could happen with that and all this different stuff. The more I play the game, I'm not there yet on Runeterra. It's going to take a lot longer. The game's just come out, so but the way I grind and the way I work through games is just how I function in them. But Riot is actually like my favorite game company. I played League of Legends for 6 years. It's still my favorite game. I love League of Legends. So when Riot was like, we've got a card game, I mean, I was on board immediately. I was like, this is going to be the next game that I'm going to go hard in, because I love Riot. I seem to not be able to make it competitively in League, but I do love card games, and I love the opportunity to try and compete again. So I started playing Runeterra, and it's awesome. It's like the best card game I've played. I love it. So I'm so happy to be playing it.
Yeah, I know we kind of definitely feel the same way, but I got to ask, League being your favorite game, who's your favorite champion?
Ooh, God, that has changed so much.
Or maybe role, put it that way.
Over the years. I think deep down, mid lane is still my favorite role. In Season 2, I was a Katarina main, so I really like Katarina. And then I was a, edgelord Zed Yasuo main in Season 3, Season 4. So, I mean, I played literally every champion in the mid lane, but those were like my favorites. So I love, Katarina, Zed Yasuo. I love that they're all in Runeterra. I hate that they aren't that great. I mean, Zed's good. Zed's alright.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, we'll get to it a little bit later in the show, but Yas got a little bit of a buff this week. I still don't see too much viable with him, and again, we'll talk a little bit about it. But hopefully, maybe we start seeing a little bit, because I know Kozer's also been itching at the chance to play some Yas here.
Gummy said he might make a deck.
He did.
I don't know if he'll be kind of like Teemo, a throwaway. That's probably how he'll work. But yeah,
I mean, I did go in against one, and again, we'll talk about it in an expedition match this past weekend. That Yas was just driving me nuts in the deck that they built. But, that's kind of interesting. So, I mean, before we start talking about weeks 2, since neither Cozer or myself have hit master, I doubt I will ever hit, that level you know, and I know Kozer's trying to make that climb. But if you had any advice for anybody that's kind of, you know, listening to the podcast, watching YouTube, on the Twitch right now, that you would say, you know, if you're looking just in general to improve, and, you know, if you feel like you're stuck in an elo hell or something like that, what tips would you kind of give, either for even lower tier, and then maybe people that are, you know, sitting at diamond or higher and trying to make that final push? You know, what kind of advice would you give out to those folks?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing and one philosophy that I really took when I first came into the game is to make sure that you kind of push any ego aside. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been a competitive gamer for a long time. Like, I know I'm good at video games, but when I came into Runeterra, I know there's a lot of people who've been playing card games professionally for a very long time, and they're gonna know a lot better than me. So what I did is I listened to what they said. I watched their streams and I copied their deck list. So I would say make sure that you're playing the best decks, and not only just taking the list and playing it, but really listening to how it should be played. Whether you're consuming content from YouTube or from Twitch, just try and find out from someone how it should be played, and then take that and run with it. And I would say stick with one deck and get really good at it in Runeterra. Because in Runeterra, like, the game is hard enough and there's enough depth that getting really good at a single deck and learning all the matchups and learning all the different interactions that can happen is definitely going to be a great way to climb if you are struggling to climb.
Okay. Now, whenever you sit there and say too, like, pick a single deck, you know, I know, especially with patch notes, let's say, coming out, like a big patch comes out. Let's say your deck takes a couple nerfs. You know, would you sit there and say, is it still worth it, at least in the short term, to continue to play that deck while, you know, the meta shifts and evolves and adapts to kind of the changes that were made? Or do you think it would be more beneficial just to kind of jump on board with whatever people are theory crafting right away, in hopes to maybe get familiar with the new meta in advance, or get a little head start on folks?
I think being adaptable is great. Being able to go to the next deck that comes out that's good, and being able to move along with the things that come out and are good. But being able to learn that quickly and continue to just specialize on that deck. Like, don't jump around to the 6 different meta decks. Pick one of the ones that's meta and stick to it. Obviously, if there's nerfs and changes and it's no longer meta, or a deck comes out that's stomping it, then switch off it. But focus on one at a time while you're climbing. If you're looking to play tournaments, you can play a lot more and you branch out, because you need to know how to play a lot of different stuff.
Absolutely.
You definitely hit my weakness. I mean, I typically go, oh, this is fun. Oh, this deck looks fun too. I want to try this. And I think that's kind of why I definitely climb a little slower than some folks.
Yeah, that's the big thing right there. Like, once I stick to usually one deck, that's where I've climbed from where I was at silver to now being in plat. But the big thing, like, I want to talk about is piloting. Like, that is huge, because honestly, you've been playing a lot of decks recently to get you in a high masters, that you've actually been piloting it, but you may have not created the deck. And that's part of this game, is even you don't have to be a deck creator, but as long as you can pilot the deck well and learn from someone else who knows how to pilot the deck, you can get lots of wins. That's why I'm always watching the top streamers play the decks that they are playing, because that's how you actually play it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. I mean, like, for instance, me, like, I'm not really a deck builder. I'm trying to get better at it. It's a skill I'm trying to learn. But I think I am a really, really good pilot in Legends of Runeterra, in card games in general. So for me, it's all about finding decks that fit my style, or finding decks that I think are really strong, and then taking my ability as a pilot to run with the deck and maybe add tech cards that I think are good for the meta, but thinking about the best ways to play it and the best ways to, of course, pilot it. I had a friend of mine played on the MTG Pro Tour, and he was talking to me when Runeterra came out, and he was saying that one of the things in MTG that they like to do, like groups of pro players, is they had these kind of almost teams, even if they weren't all on a sponsored team, but they would be a team. And on these teams, some people would be great deck builders, but not the best pilots, or really, really good at picking the right tech cards for a tournament, but maybe they weren't the best deck builder as a whole, or maybe not the best pilot. And they had some players that were absolutely genius pilots, but couldn't deck build at all and just never knew what to put in decks. But when you gave them something good, they would run away with it. And I think there are so many different skills. And so finding your group of people who work well together is so important, and learning from each other, learning from the deck builders learning from the pilots, everyone working together. Like, that's where you find the ability to climb and become really good in a game like this. And we've kind of found it with Gummy, Allnewbagels, and myself. We've been able to create some really amazing things. Gummy and Bagels mainly on the building side, and myself piloting the things that they give me. And we're able to learn a lot from that.
Ghostwriting. It made me think of that. That's a perfect example. We've been talking to Bagels about ghostwriting this week. So big time. It's really huge when you can learn how to play someone else's deck and just execute it properly. It can really help you climb the rankings for sure.
Awesome. So I mean, unless you have any general get to know Casanova type questions for the viewers, Cas, one thing that we typically kind of like to start our show off with is a recap of the week. So I know while Cozer and I have some input as to kind of what we saw this week, you probably had the most exciting week, with the highs and lows. So I don't know if you want to give us a little bit, of what you saw this week, especially with the patch. For people that aren't following you, I know you were kind of trying to make that push to number one, even as recently as a couple hours ago. Do you just want to give us a little recap as to, what you saw, if you got anything good out of your vault this week, anything like that?
Yeah, I did get a champion in my vault this week, which was cool because I think it's the first time I've gotten a champion, but I don't remember which one it was. Because I pretty much have like all of the cards that I need. At least I think so. Unless randomly like a Vlad deck gets really popular, then
yeah,
I'm mostly good. So really, I came into the week, not sure exactly what I wanted to play. I was trying to theory craft what would be good. I was thinking maybe Mistrace and Elusives are still going to be fine. I might just be playing that. But Gummy and Bagels came to me with the basically just burnless, just the face deck. And I thought it sounded really interesting. It was really cool. So I decided to test it the day before the patch came out just to get a feel for it, because it was supposed to be much better when the patch finally came out with all the nerfs to the main decks that were good at the time. But I took that deck on Monday and I took it all the way to rank 2 on the ladder with just an absurd win rate. So I was like, holy shit, this deck is actually very, very strong. Even in the previous meta, if in fact it might have even been stronger in the previous meta than it is now, because on Tuesday I grinded for like 6 hours and ended up at rank 5 after countless times of hitting rank 2 and then falling and getting back to rank 2 and falling and getting back to rank 2.
So close.
And I couldn't quite make it to the rank 1. But throughout that day, not only did people catch on to the deck, but also started just trying to build to counter it. So many healing cards were being put into lists. So much different stuff was being put in just to deal with this burn deck. And eventually, today, it was probably too much with the harrowing decks that are running like 15 cards that provide healing. And all these other crazy decks that are just out healing any burn you can do. It was probably too much for the deck, and I ended up losing like 100 ranks today. I couldn't do it. Rank two gamer.
Yeah, heartbreaks. But I did see, I think in your most tweet too, you said that you're just kind of trying to prep decks, get ready for any tournaments that are coming up, anything like that. Is there any deck style that, as you start thinking about more tournaments and long term, that you'd like to try to pilot? Like, do you typically like to try to play aggro in tournaments? Do you like more control and slow pace decks, or what are you hoping to see?
It's crazy because I used to like playing a lot of control when I played tournaments in Hearthstone. I would bring like freeze mage control warrior, like, or handlock freeze mage, that kind of stuff. I would play a lot of control, play very methodical, and I like that a lot. In Runeterra, I found like I really enjoy piloting these aggro decks. I feel like I've gotten quite good at piloting them all, and I have a lot of fun playing them because I think aggro decks are a little bit more thought-provoking in this game than they are in Hearthstone. I think aggro is very difficult. I think the burn deck is probably the hardest deck I've ever played.
Yeah,
the one today though, that one looked insane. The thought process on that one.
Yeah, but I think my problem with that one, as far as thinking through things, was because I hadn't played it enough yet. So even playing aggro decks, sometimes I'll take too long when I'm first learning it. So for me, it was more so that I was first learning the deck more than anything. But I do agree that it's Artifact 5's Karma, Shadow Isles control list that is running like 15 healing cards. That deck, I was playing that just at the end of my stream, and it's definitely thought-provoking. There's a lot of decisions to make. The control matchups with it are pretty crazy, especially against control decks that have Ionia, and you have to think about Deny still. When you don't have to think about Deny, it's a lot easier, but thinking about Deny makes the deck a lot harder to pilot. I enjoyed piloting that deck, though. I'll probably play it some more, because it's very fun. But yeah, aggro in general, I would say I definitely enjoy a lot. The elusive deck I really loved playing. Spiders was really enjoyable at the very start, and now the burn deck, which I think is the hardest one, is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you said that about aggro too, because whenever I played Hearthstone, I very much loved like face hunter decks and things like that. And I definitely find it a little bit of a harder shift to play aggro here. Only because, like in Hearthstone, it's basically you get a turn. You get to do whatever the hell you want on your turn, and your opponent can't really counter it. You know what I mean? They just got to kind of sit there and watch it. And here, it's like, okay, I got a lot of units on play, but since you're kind of going back and forth, they're just saying, okay, I see that, I'm responding. So it's a lot harder to kind of get that face damage in, and you always got to weigh, like, do I play this card that's going to give me a strong opportunity, or do I just immediately when turn starts hit face to get some sort of damage in and then hopefully set up for 2 turns from now? So I kind of like that thinking game of aggro as opposed to just put card down, hit face, put card down, hit face.
It's literally a song about that.
Yeah,
the
like
smork.
the like absolute biggest advice I can give for people trying to learn aggro is always think about open attacking first. Think how you can get punished if you don't open attack, and then decide. Because if you decide to play a minion instead of open attacking, sometimes you'll lose a lot more damage than you actually were going to gain if you had just open attacked. And so like playing your minions towards the end of the enemy's turn is always really good, because then you can get an open attack in. But yeah, being able to attack right at the start of your turn, which is what an open attack is, attack right at the start of your turn so that they can't have any interaction other than fast spells and burst spells, is going to be the best way to do it. A lot of the time you have to think about it. I mean, I'm saying think about it. Don't just do it. Think heavily think how you can get punished if you don't.
Yep.
And then generally I end up open attacking like 60-70% of the time, because it just ends up being better most of the time.
I hear that. Cozer, what about you? How was your week?
My week was good. I actually, within the last podcast and now, I went from gold to plat, so I was super stoked about that.
That's big.
I am gonna try to make the run for master. It's gonna take me a little longer. I'm gonna be one of those people that Cass is gonna be watching, and he's gonna be like, or no, it's Gummy usually, that he's like, man, this person's been diamond for like 4 weeks. How the hell is this possible? That's gonna be me. But as long as I can get to it before the beta's over and the game's released, that's all I care about. I want to hit master at some point. I think I can do it. I'm all right at piloting.
Hey, as long as you don't put any more holes in your wall, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, it was a rough time. I got really angry. Well, it's mostly because I was playing against Mist Race and didn't have the cards I needed to make it, and then I made it. Like, that's how I mostly grind it. Like, I think it was like gold 4 and 3 was all Mist Race, and then 2 and 1 were elusives, and then they killed kind of killed. I'm still playing a Mist Wraiths deck right now on Plat. It's doing all right.
Yeah.
Above 50% win rate, so that should be able to get me out of it.
Yeah, I think there's still opportunity for that. I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, your week was definitely more exciting than mine. So, if people are, returning listeners of the show, I was traveling for work last week. So I got almost no playtime done. I was, gone from Monday at like 4 o'clock Eastern, and I didn't get home until Friday, which was Valentine's Day. So I spent it with the wife and kids. So all I basically had time to do was get on the weekend, knock out my expeditions, and get a couple matches in. And oh my lord, did I have the expedition match from hell. So like, I learned the mistake of play your expeditions early when like basically all the garbage players like myself are trying to play and just get their champion. Because when you wait till late game, you get like the Casanovas of the world that are like, I'm going to try to theory craft a perfect deck, and just make this synergy amazing. Because I get into one, and it's like I'm running this like Freyr Demacia deck, and I get like an Ash, and I start getting a lot of Frostbite cards. So I'm like, okay, I got some synergy going. I think I can make this work. And I get up against this guy. He's running Noxus, Freyr, and Ionia, and all he's doing, literally every turn, is just stunning my units. And all I'm doing on my turn is just frostbiting it. So neither of us are really making any progress. At one point, he gets 3 Minotaur Reckoners out. And so it's just, my board just can't do anything. It just, start of every round, I just can't do anything. I have on my end a Ranta Shaman. So I'm just frostbiting their strongest enemy. And why this was a problem was because of the amount of stuns and recall that he was putting out on me. He has 2 Legion Generals that he starts putting down, and they're like 18-18, 19-19, things like that at this point. And he just can't attack with them because of the frostbite. But I can't do anything to take him off the board at all. So I mean, literally, like I'm streaming at this point, and I got to give it to my one Twitch follower, Donkelberg. He's just keeping me laughing because he's like, I don't think there's a way you get through this, and I'm saying, there's definitely no way to get through this. But if I can survive like 6 turns, I'm good. I'm counting that as a win for me because there's no way I should survive against like 17-17, 16-16, things like that, just constantly sitting on board. And he has like a Braum, it's buffed to like 310. It's something like that. Eventually gets a Yasta stick, starts clearing my board just because of the stuns that are coming out. So I mean, it was the most cancerous deck that I think, or expedition I've ever played. But I mean, it was fun. But I was definitely like, okay, this week I'm knocking out the expeditions early because I don't want to go up against that kind of stuff again.
Yeah, but expeditions, man. That's the problem with them is they can have so many extra cards that they can run 5 Minotaurs if they want. They can do whatever they want. That's why they frustrate me. I always try to do them, and then honestly, I just end up surrendering at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really play my expeditions anymore. I used to play them to get the champions, but I'm just very like focused on constructed. So I actually don't play that many expeditions. I'm probably not very good at them because I haven't been playing them. So
well, I mean, if I had a chance to make, number 1 NA, I definitely would be ignored as well. Yeah. My like number 1 NA is getting those 7 wins. If I can get that, I'm okay.
Number 1 in your heart.
hey, I'm a winner somewhere, right? So obviously the big news of the week, and I know we're all kind of excited about it, was this was a pretty major patch, big patch that came out. Obviously there's a lot of kind of like bug fixes, UIs, things like that. We're not really gonna, or at least I don't plan on talking about them. If Cass or Cozer, if you guys have anything that you want to talk about, bug fixes or anything like that, like animation speeds, we can get into it. But, I was hoping maybe we can kind of start talking about some of the cards that got buffed and nerfed, and see what you guys think about it. So the very first card, let's talk a little bit about Lux. Lux got a little bit of a buff in her power and health. Level 1, she goes from 3 to 4 power, 4 to 5 health. Whenever she levels up, she goes 4 to 5 power, 5 to 6 health. So it gives her a little bit more sticking power. Ultimately, I don't know how much of an impact this is going to have, I think, long term. What do you guys think?
I don't think it matters that much. I don't think like her stats was weak. I think it's just in general she was underperforming, but I also think she wasn't being tested that much,
No.
and the buff is going to make people test her a lot, so it's just going to be a matter of maybe there is a really strong Lux deck out there, and people just didn't know because they just didn't try playing her. But now with the buff, people are just going to be like, well, maybe we'll see if she's any good, and they might discover a Lux deck. But so far, that hasn't really happened this week that I've seen. At least I have not been running into any Lux decks. I heard there was like legends of Strife Crow playing some Lux deck up to like ranked top 5 masters somewhere. Okay. But that was a couple days ago. That might have even been like pre-patch that he did that. So I don't actually know whether or not Lux is any good.
Now Riot, whenever they kind of release this patch too, they made it sound like it's going to be, you know, like region released, minor patch, major patch, minor patch, another region. So if they generally follow that formula, we're kind of on the major patch now. Do you think that if they were to tweak Lux again, Cass, you know, what would be, you know, what you think that they should add or change from the card to maybe give her a little bit more incentive to be played?
Oh, she needs to be like a low drop. So like being a six drop is what makes her bad. I don't know if she's bad. It's just like that. She seems to be pretty bad. So the fact that she's a 6 drop, you want Final Spark as like a removal tool, right? That makes sense. It's does 4 damage to a unit. It's a slow spell, but it's free. The overwhelm's like neat, but you need a unit to hit to actually overwhelm, so you need to be using it for removal. So if it was a low drop, and then you could like bank mana to still spend the 6+ mana to get the Final Spark, like you could probably still make it. You have to cast 6+ mana of spells to flip. Yeah. Just make her like a low drop, like a 3 drop, like a 3 drop, like 1/2 with barrier, something. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
like,
they would
you
have
might
to
be
lower
easy
the
to
stats.
remove, but like, or get rid of barrier. Why does she have to have barrier? Make her like a 3 drop, 2/3 or something with this, and call it good. You know, like
that makes sense.
I don't know exactly what I would do as far as the stat lines go, but I just like reducing the mana cost and then obviously adjusting stats to fall in line with that mana cost would be the best way to make her like a viable, if not really good or OP card.
Yeah, no, I think it makes perfect sense. Cozer, anything to weigh on that one, or do we want to move on?
No, I think you hit it on Lux. Lux is just, a little underwhelming right now, but we'll see if someone can come up with a good deck with her, but I just don't see it right now. It's if you actually look at all of the top decks, a lot of them are going anywhere between the mana range of 1, like the burn deck is like 1 to 4. I think that's the highest you spend. I think it's 4, or is it 5?
Decimate. Technically 5 because of Decimate, but really the curve is like 1 to 4. Like, just insane. Have those Decimates in there, but since they're spells, it doesn't even feel like it's that high of a mana cost. Yeah. You're occasionally banking some spell mana.
Exactly. Especially with those decks, or that deck.
I hear you. So next one, Cozer, your boy So. Basically his level up text. So basically the text on the card, it went from in order for level up to stun or recall 6 units to just 5.
Underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they're giving him attention. I still don't think that there's, from what I've seen, again in my extremely limited knowledge pool, enough of a valid stun/recall meta deck out there to climb with that really the one unit would make all that much of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a lot of times on my stream and when I was doing my patch review. And even, I mean, ever since this game came out, I've been saying this, but Yasuo is a good card in a really bad archetype. Like he himself, his effect is all good. There's just not enough cards to support him. So reducing the amount of stuns he needs is great. It doesn't do enough because the deck's just not good. Like, the cards in the deck are just not good enough to make this work. There has to be some more stuff that supports the archetype added for this to be a good deck. And maybe 5 is still too many. I don't know if that's the issue. It's more so just the deck's not good. But obviously, if you could level up your Yasuo very quickly, then maybe the deck would suddenly be fine. But I think that it's more important that just the other cards in the deck are actually good than making Yasuo like just even more of a powerful unit.
Yeah, because he'd be broken. Like, when he levels up, he strikes for 5. Like, unless it's, like, late game, like, he can basically clear a whole board, like, up to, like, I don't know, like, round 6 or 7. Like, easy if you have a decent amount of stun cards out. That's one of the biggest problems with him, is a lot of the stun units take a really long time to bring on board. So you're not leveling up Yasuo until almost like, sometimes it's like round 9 plus. Like, it's bad. Like, even, yes, now they made it 5. For this card to work, I honestly think they need to make it like 3. And some of the stuns need to not be as slow. I mean, with the deny changes, it might make a bit of a difference, but still, some of those stun cards cost a bit too much mana. Like, I get it. If they buff it too much, he will be overpowered, in my opinion. Like, he will be a huge card if they don't balance him properly. So, I don't know. I feel like if you make him too strong, he'll be like League Yasuo. And he'll just be insane to deal with. And that's why his mechanic is kind of hard to get around. Like, it's, I don't know. Just my opinion. What do you think, Cass?
Stun is like too strong of a card text. It in the sense of like, if it were easy to apply stun to people, stun would be broken.
That's what I'm saying.
Because like, you can't block, you can't do anything, right? So that's why stun has to be on slow effects, and stun has to be like more regulated, and that's why like Steel Tempest can only be used against attackers. Like, you can't use it when someone's defending. That would be nuts.
Yeah.
Push them out of the way and you can hit them in the face. Like, stun is just too good. So they have to make it really bad. So now stun's just garbage instead, right? Because it's too good. And so putting stun on like a bunch of units, they have to make the unit bad to compensate. Which I understand, and it's correct of them to do. It's just, it kind of makes it very hard to make Yasuo work. It kind of relegates Yasuo to like expeditions, where, like you said, I mean, you would playing against a bunch of Minotaurs on board, and they're stunning your whole board. And in expedition, it's going to be harder for people to have removal for Yasuo, so you might be able to stick and actually go off. But in constructed, like, you're going to play him on the board, he's going to get grasped, he's going to get black speared, he's going to get vengeanced, he's going to get like he'll just get killed. And you can run deny, but deny just got nerfed, so you can try and recall your Yasuo. At least that works, right? You can run recalls, but
that's still
then you're running
mana.
the card. Then you're running the card recall in your deck, and then you're kind of upset. So
I hear you. Next card, back to back, 5 cost to 6 cost. Me personally, I think this is a welcome change. I think that 1 mana, just adds a little bit more. For people to have to sit there and think about using it, especially because you can bank 3 spell mana pretty quickly in the game if you absolutely want to. So I kind of like that it takes 1 more turn to kind of get online here.
Yeah, back to back is still, I mean, it's still broken. Still a great card, but it was just a nice little nerf. Like nice change. Give it an extra mana. Make it a little bit less punishing. Give you a little bit more time to play around it.
Next card, Arena Battlecaster, went from 1 health to 2 health. Again, I typically didn't play him too terribly much, so I don't have too much opinions on this, but I do like that it brings him out of kind of the 1 health, anything can clear him range. So hopefully that we see a little bit more play from it.
We are in some of the burn decks. They're actually running him.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of him in. I know Gummy put together a Jinx Teemo burn deck with a lot more discard. I actually don't like that version from what I've played, but I need to test it more to have a full opinion on it. But that is running Arena Battlecaster. It tries to go a lot wider with the board, but it does a lot less direct damage. So it's a little bit better against aggro matchups, but I think it does much worse against any control and mid-range decks. But Arena Battlecaster, I think this change is really good for him. I think he's now actually a pretty good card. The meta is not favoring him. If this had been like this in the previous patch, Spiders probably would have still been a top tier deck. I think being able to play Arena Battlecaster, have an extra HP so he doesn't get removed just instantly to any chump blocker, allowing for maybe even instead of just 1 turn of swings with the buff, getting multiple turns of swings with the buff. Might have been enough to really put this card as being a very impactful piece that you could put in that deck. So I like this change a lot. I just don't know how much it's going to impact the meta right now until we get another patch that deals with control, because we're in the land of control right now. It feels like, because that burn deck is certainly the best aggro deck. I can't imagine there's a better aggro deck out there, at least as of right now. We'll have to see, but for now, it's like, to me, that is by far the best aggro deck, and it's struggling against this control meta, and that's not what you want to see from an aggro deck, is struggling against a control meta. That should be where it thrives. So.
Yeah. Next card, Crimson Curator, goes from 2 health to 3 health. Again, another card that I didn't see too much of. I'm still honestly not seeing a ton of. Again, at least in my elo and what I'm playing in. So I don't know if it's having that much of an impact, long term.
Well, to go on to what Cass was saying, unless they start making Vlad decks more mainstream, I don't think we're gonna see it that often.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, there's some cool Vlad lists out there, mainly being run by Earlmeister. He kind of has the monopoly on Vladimir decks right now. He's the one running all of them. But he has a cool aggro deck that just runs Vlad and Hecarim as finishers. It's just mono Nox pretty much with 3 Hecarims. So there's a little SI, but he might have actually added Mark of the Isles today, because that card's really good too. But it's just a very aggressive Mononox deck that just tries to fill the board with very aggressive high attack minions, and then he plays Vlad, and the damage that goes directly to face from the Vlad, and he swings in and hopes that he kills him. He's done something like a 65% win rate with that deck in Masters, so he's doing pretty well with it.
That's pretty good.
You can't climb to like rank 1 with 65%, but you can do pretty well, right?
Yeah,
so he's doing quite well in Master with it. I don't know how he did today with it. That would have been good to know, because today the meta has shifted drastically.
To control.
And I don't think it would do well in the current meta, but I'll have to talk to him later and see how he's doing with his Vlad deck in the current climate, because I'd be very interested to find out how that's working out. I don't think Crimson Curator really fits in the archetypes where Vlad is actually good. He's more so for like a mid-range deck or a control deck, where I think Vlad has done his best and seems his best in an aggro archetype as a finisher. But we'll have to see. It'd be cool to see some kind of control or mid-range deck with Vlad. That'd be dope. Maybe you get Curator. Card advantage is a huge deal, so getting free cards is great. So it'd be awesome to see. This buff is good. It's a great buff. Just one extra beefier body onto a card that you need to deal damage to is great. I have no qualms with this buff. I just haven't seen it really do anything.
Yeah, I hear you. So the next couple cards I think coming out here are kind of big ones.
Deny, that's huge.
We already talked about it. the Deny here going from 3 mana to 4, so you basically can't just bank your 3 spell mana and just hold it as a threat. You always have to be spending at least some of your turn mana on it. It gives people, from what I've seen, less reason to be running 3 denies in decks, if deny at all, really. To maybe going down to a max of 1 or 2 denies.
Yeah, for sure. I think since the meta has slowed down to more control, people are feeling comfortable enough to start adding deny back into their decks, because harrowing has been running pretty rampant on ladder, and you probably want to deny that. But since the decks are slower, I think deny is going to come back in as 3 copies for a little bit. That's my prediction. But when this nerf came in, my initial thoughts were definitely like, I wouldn't want to run 3 copies of deny. That's changed now, but back then I was like, back then, as in a day ago, I was like 2 denies would be 2 denies would be plenty. Now with 4 cost, it definitely hurts the card. It definitely helps playing around it too, and you don't have to worry about double deny nearly as often.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I hear that. Next one. So my boy
for so long.
Oh, this is the biggest heartbreak, I think, of the patch to me. Inspiring Mentor. So he gets a buff to health of 1 health to 2, but instead of giving a unit 1/1, he now is only giving them 1/0.
This is released.
Yeah, this is huge, huge, huge. What a nerf.
Yeah, it definitely hurt elusives more than we initially thought. Mainly because just so many control tools started running rampant, especially PNZ. So the fact that there isn't the extra 1 HP on your elusives that you're playing hurts a lot against removal, against any of that early removal, Mystic Shot and Thermo Beam and all that stuff. So ended up kind of killing elusives for now. I think people will probably try and revisit it. I just haven't played elusives for a long time. I don't know how good they are right now. They didn't seem that good right now, but I haven't really tested it. So maybe they have a chance in this control meta. I doubt it, but
Not against
maybe.
Ezreal, not against
Yeah.
Esnux. They're just too strong
Yeah,
in
but
Heimer.
Ezreal's starting to fall out
Yeah, a
now
little
because
bit.
it loses to all the other stuff that just
Yeah.
came in.
Well,
So
which kills me because I just made the Ezreal control
Yeah.
deck. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start.
everyone thought Ezreal was going to be the best deck coming in, except for Gummy and Bagels were confident on the burn deck. And after playing it the day before the patch, I believed them. I was like, okay, this is the best deck. But pretty much everyone else was on the train of like, Ezreal's going to be the best deck. And it comes around and it's getting destroyed by the burn deck. So everyone switches to the burn deck, and then everyone starts teching to try and beat the burn deck. And the things that they teched to beat the burn deck actually do really well against Ezreal. So
time, 'cause
now
of the
Ezreal is
heals,
bad
yeah.
against everything that's in the meta right now, and it makes it very hard to play Ezreal.
Which is crazy to think that they didn't think of this before the current patch, like how to deal with Ezreal. Because Ezreal started coming out like last, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday. Hyped was playing it and showed that he got to like high masters with it, and everyone started kind of running it a little bit before then too. But yeah, it really started seeing a lot of plays after I noticed Hype post something about it.
Yeah. Next card, Jewel Protector went from a 3/3 unit to a 4/4 unit, so he keeps the same text on the card, still able to buff a unit, +3/+3. So it's a nice little buff. I mean, I think it maybe gives some way for people to want to run this now as opposed to something like Inspiring Mentor. 3/3 on anything is a huge buff. So I'd like to see a little more play coming out of here, but just it feels good for the price that you're paying him. It kind of sucked to get a 3/3 out for that cost. So 4/4 I feel a lot better on, especially with his card text.
Yeah, it's an expedition buff, I would say. I think
Yeah, definitely.
Shield Protector is probably like really good in expedition right now, especially with any kind of elusives or anything. Like you slap that on an Empyrean or a Lifeblade, and it's nuts. But I don't think that I think it's still too slow for
5 mana.
Well, maybe in this control meta you can. I'm thinking. I still don't think that this is going to be something you can play, but since the meta has slowed down quite a bit, you might be able to play 5-drops. I don't know if Jeweled Protector is something that you are like, I want this as my 5-drop that I'm going to play, but at least it isn't too expensive to put it in a deck anymore. It's just, is it worth putting in a deck now?
Yeah,
and I would say probably not. There's probably better options, but at least now you could maybe try it. You can maybe see with the meta.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt as bad. Next one. So Lifeblade here goes from 3 health to 2. Huge fan of this. Huge fan of this change. I mean, especially with tying back into Inspiring Mentor. Like whenever I was playing elusives, it was basically just get Mentor out, recall, and get Mentor out, and just every time just playing them on my Lifeblade, and then you'd get something out like a 4/5 or something like that on turn 4. And it was great. So I definitely think this nerf was well needed.
Yeah, this was the main thing I was talking about earlier with the elusives. It's just taking the bodies down to 2 HP and not being able to buff them with Mentor has definitely caused elusives to fall out of the meta because they're just losing to PNZ and losing to Shadow Isle's control, and it's hard to say if they're completely dead and gone, but we may not be seeing elusives for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Going into the next ones here, let's go to Shadow Isles. So Commander gets a cost change from 8 mana to 9. They do bring his power up accordingly from 8 mana to 9. And they changed the text on his card basically now to read that, cuts enemy Nexus health in half rounded up. So at first I thought, and Cass, let me know if I'm misinterpreting this. At first I thought it meant that if you got a Nexus to 1, when it was rounding up, it was going to, so technically half of 1 is 0.5, that it was going to round Nexus health up to 1. Somebody just informed me that they tested it up and it rounds the damage up, not the Nexus health. So I think I was misinterpreting the card text on this. So basically you can still win the game with the Ledros, correct?
I think. I haven't seen Ledros since the patch, but everyone was really confused when they had this note. Like, I was super confused. Everyone's really confused. And I still haven't seen him, so I honestly still don't know because I haven't seen it, but I assume he is the same as he was before. They just changed the text.
Okay.
Yeah, we got someone's got a scrim with that. I've been wondering about that because right when
I literally don't know.
I read it, I was like, does that mean that they're always? It should say that, like, I don't know how you do the text, but it shouldn't go lower than 1. This card
I feel like it feels bad.
Yeah, I mean, but what you're talking about is the game slowing down. So could we see Ledros maybe put back in some of these decks just because of it cutting Nexus into half?
Oh, I think he's probably fine. Because the thing that I talked about in my basically first impressions that I did is I think he's probably good in control now, but less so in the aggro decks because you don't want to top end at 9. Top ending at 8 was already kind of a stretch, but you were okay with it because generally the turn that Ledros hit the ground, it ended the game.
Yeah.
But 9 is just a little bit too much. So I think in this meta, Ledros is probably really good.
Control, yeah.
There's a lot of harrowing being played, and I think Ledros is probably good in those kind of decks. So in general, yeah, I mean, I think Ledros is perfectly fine with this change in control decks, of course. And it's a good change because Ledros is supposed to be a control card, not an aggro card. And they've made it so he's better in control than he is in aggro, and I'm happy with it. That's great.
Huge, yeah.
Good. Next card, Rasa the Third. Cost changed from 7 to 8.
Huge. This was
I mean, I kind of like that. Again, kind of gives them a little bit longer to get online. I felt like 7 for the power that he brings is just a little too cheap. You're getting to 7 mana mighty quick, especially if you're playing kind of a very control meta. So the decks or the matches drag on a little bit. So I like that, if you are playing a little bit more of an aggro type deck or mid-range type deck, it gives you a little bit more opportunity to get done what you need to get done before, these Shadow Isles, Rasa, and, Ledros start coming online.
Yeah, I mean, the Rasa change for me is the same as, like, the Ledros change, right? Like, it hurts aggro decks that are running Rasa, and he's probably still okay in control. I don't know if I would include him in the current control decks that are being played. Should I say that? I don't know. I need to think about that one. That one's very hard because, like, there's a lot of control in the meta, and so Rasa theoretically is going to kill very strong enemies when he hits the ground.
Oh yeah.
But also, like, do I have room for Rasa in some of these decks right now? If I'm playing Harrowing and Ruination and Ledros and all, like, is there room for Rasa? I don't. Maybe not. Probably not. But
no,
he's good. Not. He's still such a good card. Like, even at 8 mana, he's a great card. Definitely feels a lot worse to play against an aggro deck and play your Rasa. And as an aggro deck, it feels worse to play him with costing 8 mana. So reduces a lot of play from the Rasa, but he probably can still fit into some control lists.
He smacks. Awesome. When he gets on board, he smacks. If you can get him online.
Next card, Scuttlegeist. They basically just added Fearsome. Added the keyword Fearsome.
Expedition change.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Nothing too exciting.
The next one.
Yep, Tortured Prodigy, 3 power to 4. Again, basically, I think they're just trying to incentivize, people to kind of pick them whenever it pops up. The next one I think that's probably going to be impacting old meta decks is Wraithcaller. So they did remove the fearsome keyword on it. And I kind of like the rationale why. It's like, hey, look, if their ability, triggers, the card text triggers, that you're still getting a fearsome unit out. So it's basically only really causing your opponent, one unit to really have to worry about dealing and not being unable to block. So you still think you kind of get value for it, but it feels a little bit better to play against, in my opinion.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. I think being able to have something that you can chump block definitely can help you survive in some situations where you would have died previously. Definitely, I felt it a lot playing the burn deck and being able to play used Cask Salesman after they played Wraithcaller and actually being able to block Wraithcaller with a Cask and actually save myself a lot of damage helped me win that matchup a good amount during my climb to rank 2 early on. So I do think it was at least in that sense, like being able to block it with that. People can block it with Omen Hawk or block it with Mentor, or block it with whatever early game minion that they're playing. That's nice. So I think it was a good nerf. It didn't kill the deck, which also makes me feel like that's a good nerf. Like Wraithcaller is still a good card. It's still good to play. It's still great, but it was a nerf that at least allows some counterplay to a Wraithcaller play when they put that on the board. Like it gives you something that you can block. So I do like the change. I think that deck is still going to be busted as long as Hecarim is as good as he is. Like it's still going to be a good deck.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Cozer and I were both super anticipating a Hecarim change, and it's nice that they're putting it on the unofficial watch list. Is that how they phrased it?
No, it's the actual watch list.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on the actual watch list.
Okay. Because I thought for sure Hecarim was going to get hit hard. I mean, we were laughing, Cozer, because you said you actually got him out of your expedition or something, but then you went to check and you didn't see him there, and I was like, that's the nerf. They're just taking him out of the game. He's too busted.
Yeah, no, he's that was just a bug. I logged back in and had Hecarim. But yeah, Hecarim's huge. Like he can 3 Kindler, like that's basically what I'm running right now. It's having 6 Hecarims essentially is just it's just nuts. You just overwhelm the board. He's a really strong character. I don't really know exactly what they do to nerf him, but because his mana cost is decent, he's made to be like mid to late game. And I think it's mainly the overpower. I think they kind of need to remove the overpower because that can sometimes win you the game. And maybe lower his health, maybe 1, like go to a 4-5 or something like that. What do you think, Cass?
So my original thought for a change on Hecarim would be to make him a 3/6, so he doesn't hit through as hard on.
So like Thresh, okay.
Onto your board because he has overwhelm, so making him do a little bit less damage so he doesn't push through more face damage if you block him feels good. Putting him in range to die to Culling Strike is kind of a nice touch. That if he's overwhelming the meta, you can run Noxus in your control lists and have Culling Strike to kill him off.
Yeah, now Twitch chat, they say, what about, the idea of maybe making him just summon a single token, as opposed to
I think the only reason I don't like that is the idea of Hecarim and attacking in with ephemeral units. The fantasy of that and him coming in with, Spectral Riders and kind of proccing his own level up if you can keep him on board for long enough. I like the concept of that. So if they were to do that, I would rather they just nerf how much damage that the ephemeral units do, but keep it at 2. Because if Hecarim himself swings 4 times, Hecarim can level himself up. I think that's fair. I think that's great. I think that's a cool idea. Making him have to swing 8 times to level himself up, I don't like. So if anything on that nerf, I would consider just nerfing the attack on those units. They're ephemeral anyway. They're not sticking on the board. You're not hurting his defensive capabilities by hurting the damage. You're just making it so he doesn't wipe someone's board for trying to block these, 3/2s that are getting summoned.
Yeah, you can hear that. That makes sense. So the rest of the changes in the patch, again, we talked about how They do have some stuff on the watch list that they're looking at.
Fierce
They did
control.
make some XP and reward changes to expeditions, to your daily PvP wins, your friend challenges. Basically they're just trying to level that out a little bit. We knew that was coming. The FPS option was added for PC. So you can now sit there and go, I think, up to 60 plus if your computer can handle it. The deck builder UI, I kind of like this now on the mana curve chart. It actually shows you how many cards are in each, as opposed to just kind of trying to say, well, I think this looks like double. So that's kind of great. But apart from that, I think we pretty much covered the meat of the patch. Do you guys have any other final thoughts on patch? Things that you didn't see that you wish I would have? Maybe things that you anticipate coming in before we kind of start going into more deck talk and some things like that.
Well, I want to go into the XP. Like, I know you just brushed over it quickly. That's actually huge. Like, literally, to be able to grind the game. Like, some Saturdays I'll literally play like 12 hours, and then I'll run out of. I can't earn any more XP for a win. So it's like to get that 100 XP. That's massive. I can earn more region crates. If I want to, some days I can grind a little longer to get my vault done. If I know I'm going to have a day or two off. Like when you were gone on vacation, or not vacation, for work, my bad.
Workcation.
When you're workation, when you're gone for a week, if you could have grinded a little bit harder.
Yep.
And still got XP, it would have been nice, Yeah.
And like I said, all my problems from last week are going to be solved whenever it goes onto mobile. When this is mobile, there's almost no excuse not to hit your max vault every week.
Cass not going to sleep. He already screwed up his sleep schedule like a week ago, and he just fixed it. As far as I know, I think it's still fixed, right, Cass?
Yeah. I've been waking up pretty early actually, and then starting my stream. Like I kind of get up, get around, get some food, and start stream by like 1 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern, which is
usually when I see you live. Yeah.
That's
huge. That's huge. That's a big buff.
Huge buff, actually. Massive buff.
Life buff right there.
Sleep schedule buffed.
So let's talk a little bit about this too, which I found interesting. Just because Cass, you sit there and you're talking about how quickly the meta's been changing. So Mobalytics, they released what they called Swim's meta report, where EG Swim sits there and talks about the decks that he believes are going to be strong post-patch. So it's a good theory craft kind of attempt at what a very good deck builder would anticipate with the card changes. And he released a couple decks that he said these are going to be the tiers, or what he considered were the tiers for people to kind of start looking into and building. And they were basically like an S tier Ezreal control, and this isn't all of them, just full disclosure. S tier Ezreal control, S tier Heimer control, S tier Fearsome mid range. I did include in our show notes the B tier mid range Frostbite because I'm enjoying that deck a lot, and it breaks my heart that it's a B tier because it's a fun deck to play.
Well, unfortunately, it's probably D tier now.
Yeah, it's definitely dying off.
It's not good in this meta.
No, I mean it's a fun deck, but it is not a.
Oh, it was great deck. Before the patch. It was great in that meta.
So now that the patch is out, when we sit here and talk a little bit about what was anticipated, Cass, versus what people are starting to build, what did you see early patch days? How has it shifted to today? And is there a certain deck that you would feel confident of saying, hey, look, if you build this today, you should get a little bit of value out of it, or you think it's going to stick around a little bit longer than maybe a day or two?
No. I can't do that. I can tell you that. So this was pretty much what people were thinking, other than Bagels Gummy and myself, because they had the sauce with the face list. They had the sauce. So that ended up being the best deck on day one. So everyone started playing that. And now everyone's playing healing and control. And there isn't one healing control deck that's like, this is the best. At least I don't think so. I don't think one stands out as being like absolutely the best. Maybe Karma SI is one of the better ones, but
What about healing?
I wouldn't go out there
Healing.
and saying anyone is one that you should go out there and like craft and spend all your shards. I would wait. If you're spending
Yeah, that's
shards and
true.
wild cards, I would wait a little bit and wait and see for this patch to kind of calm down and us find our fearsome and find our elusives of this patch and figure it out, because that burn list is great, and yesterday I would have been like, yeah, craft it, but then suddenly we started getting dunked by all this healing, and while I think that deck still potentially is, I want to say it's potentially tier 1, it's very powerful if you playing it properly. It's also incredibly hard to pilot, so I wouldn't recommend that anyone build it unless you're very confident in your abilities to play aggro. But yeah, I don't think I can recommend a deck to craft right now. That's how unknown the patch is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
pretty true.
That's fair. That's fair. So I mean, yeah, I mean, if people are just kind of saying, "Hey, stick to your guns," I mean, like I said earlier, I don't remember if it was on stream or before stream, but when we were kind of talking that we were gonna mention these a little bit, I literally just bought my 3 wild cards and I'm like, "Oh, I'm building this Ezreal control." I was like, "This looks like a great deck," and then like we were like, "You should probably hold off on that." I'm like, "Damn it, it was too late. It's too late." So
Well, you might be able to refund them still if you literally just bought them.
If you haven't played Ezreal yet, you can refund them.
yeah,
Play
the way I
Ezreal,
view it
yeah.
is eventually Ezreal will come into play. You know,
He's a good card. It'll probably be all right.
A lot of people say he was crap at first, and then he came up.
Yeah, then they found you can basically OTK people with him without even really trying that hard to OTK with him. So
I hear you. So you know, I mean, it is interesting to see like just how quickly the meta is kind of adapting and growing post patch. You know, like you said before, people weren't running denies. Now denies are starting to come back in. So it's kind of an interesting concept here. Cozer, you mentioned that there was a tournament that you watched, kind of as our
early
pro
morning
scene
on
viewer.
Sunday. It was a Polish streamer tournament, an LOR invitational held by esportsmania.pl. I'm assuming that's for Poland.
yeah, it's Poland.
Yeah, so basically what it was a bunch of big Polish streamers like Alan ZQ that actually just got rank 1 with that control deck you were talking about, the one with a lot of healing. Shiku. I had to watch a Caldor stream to remember how to pronounce his name, because he used to play HOTS, and he used to play like back in 2015, so like way ago. Like he was on G2. That's how old into HOTS we're going. Like G2 never made it into HEC because they pulled out of the game way before then. So anyway, Shiku was in it, and then a couple of other guys that I've actually not really heard of too much. But so basically what happens is Shiku won all the way through the winner's bracket, made it to the finals. And then Alan ZQ made it, I think it was to the semis, then got knocked out by Shiku. And then Amix, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, Amix lost his first game to Alan ZQ, and then made a loser's run all the way to face Alan again, and then made it to the grand finals and beat Shiku with using, I think it was Ezreal Freeze, and I think it was Mistrace. Most of them are running basically the decks that I was talking about last week when I was talking about Casanova and Gummy playing in that tournament that's actually coming up soon again. I think that's on the 29th. Okay.
Maybe 29th?
I don't know.
One of the two.
There's
the
3
next Sunday.
tournaments.
Not this Sunday, next Sunday.
Yeah, there's 3 tournaments next weekend, all at the same time.
Okay.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense. 2 of them, I think, are free to play with prize pools, and one of them is a buy-in. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to I don't want to like talk against any of the tournaments. I'm only playing in one of them. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Do you know which one you're actually playing?
I know which one I do.
Okay.
I mean, I can say it here. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, go for it. That way people want to watch you. They know where you're going.
I'm gonna play in Monakuma's. I trust him as an organizer. He actually puts out a prize pool, even if it's no matter how small. He throws up a prize pool, and I appreciate the fact that he puts that effort in. And I know he runs his tournaments well. He tries his very best, at least, you know.
Yeah.
Like I know he's at least putting in the effort. So I
Yeah.
like playing in his tournaments. It just gives me practice in a tournament environment. Generally, there's not a whole ton of great players that come to it, but we did last time have, I think it was like 5 or 6 really good players actually signed up. So it made the tournament at least pretty exciting. Gummy and I ended up being in the final, and Gummy won 2-1. It's all best of 3.
Okay.
But yeah, there was also in that tournament was Kiwi and Prismat and
Oh, wow.
Prismatic got
there's one
knocked
more
out.
name that I cannot remember. But not Nidai, Shalon.
Yeah,
who
he's also a stream
another
rat.
another Fiora player. I was thinking it's like the guy who plays a lot of Fiora. It's got to be Nidai, but no, it was Shalon.
Yeah, it's yeah, I was gonna actually talk about Monokuma Esports. So I'll be putting their in there. Go to Twitter. I think he's posting something this week. Because I actually haven't looked at the Discord in a couple days. Has he already posted everything and it's like for sure happening next Sunday, like 100%, or do you know?
I don't know. I think he's supposed to be, but I haven't checked. So
okay, but yeah, if you want to go get some practice, it's open to everyone, and yeah, some master players. I'm hoping they're listening so they can come in and give you a little bit of competition.
Yeah. If nothing else, it's always good just to kind of watch these things because you got you know, people like Casanova and playing against them will give you a real good idea of where your weaknesses are.
Eye opening.
You know, because you're sitting there seeing like the time, and the biggest thing that I learned too, whenever I started to kind of play these, you know, digital card games, is the game gives you a timer. Use the timer. Like just because you have a 2-drop in your hand, don't just play it. You know what I mean? Like if it's turn 2, like hold back, think about it. If the game's giving you a minute to think about everything that can go on, take that time. And that's the one thing that like I've noticed a lot whenever you're looking at pro players and you're looking at these master rank people, is that they are taking every second a lot of times of that, what we call the rope timer, to really make sure that they've thought out every possible option before making the play. You know, and so kind of when I started to think of it that way and not just automatically playing on curve, you know, that kind of helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. Is you know, Casanova, you sit there and keep talking about the deck that Bagels and Gummy made, that you were kind of piloting up to rank 2. I know you sat there and said that, you know, it may have fallen a little bit out of meta, especially recently, just because of the counters that people are starting to develop. But can you give us a run through of exactly what that deck is, what makes it kind of hard to pilot, what you have to think about, you know, whenever you're playing it, you know, and just your overall thoughts about it, and kind of how you played it this week?
Yeah, so I mean, it is a burn deck, absolutely, right? Like your job of this deck is to use all of your tools in order to deal 20 damage to their face before they can kill you. Generally is how it works. It's not so much about them stabilizing the board or anything, it's them killing you, because a lot of the games you're going to win at like between 1 and 5 HP. You're going to be left with nothing left. Every single card in the deck in some way deals damage to the enemy's face. And that's what's so powerful about it. Looks like we lost Smithel for a second there, but
yeah. Hello.
All right. Bud?
Okay, well, carry on anyways.
All right.
There you go, he's back.
So essentially, every single card in the deck deals damage to face in some capacity. Even the cards like Rummage essentially draws you more damage, right? So you have Draven to create spinning axes and Chumpwump to create mushrooms that you can rummage away, and those in turn will turn into more damage. So Rummage is worth 2 cards worth of damage. So every single card in this deck is to deal more damage to the enemy's face, and you need to be focusing on constantly putting out pressure and essentially developing a game plan in order to deal enough damage to their face to win the game. So a lot of times it's a lot about thinking ahead and doing a lot of just kind of quick math in that time, and thinking like, what cards do I need to draw? What different outs do I have? What line can I take here that will allow me to win the game? A lot of times just a random strategic thing that you pretty much always use, like playing used cask salesman on the enemy's turn so that you can use the casks as blockers, and things like waiting until towards the end of enemy turns to flood the board with minions when they can't play removal, so you get an open attack. Because even if they can clear with an avalanche after you've open attacked, it doesn't matter because that damage gets in, and that's what's important. You have to get that damage in at every turn that you can get the damage in. You need to get as much as you can because you have spells to finish people off. You have your decimates, you have your get exciteds, you have mystic shot. That's all going to go to the face. You just have to use your minions and opportunities where they can get as much value and as much damage as possible, and that's what you're always thinking about. You're always thinking, when can I play this? Is it going to get the most amount of damage? And generally that's going to be right at the end of an opponent's attacking turn. You want to play those minions down and then open attack on the following turn.
Awesome. Now let's maybe kind of shift it. So you said people are starting to catch on to this deck.
Yeah.
What exactly have you been seeing folks start to kind of include or start to play against that's really giving you a hard time with this?
Just healing, just all the healing.
Healing.
Healing is what counters this deck, right? If they don't have healing in their deck list, you will probably win like at least 80% of the time.
Okay.
Because this deck easily deals 20 damage within 5 to 7 turns. You can easily get 20 damage out. But a lot of times you can't get much more than that 20 damage out. And so if they start to heal, 3 points here, 5 points here, it starts to put you in a lot of trouble and it makes it very hard to get through it. At least that was my experience today. I know Bagels and Gummy were saying they didn't think that was necessarily true. They had done some testing, but I think their latter experiences today have been reflective of mine as well. And there has been a bit of a struggle against these healing decks. And I don't know if it's going to be good enough to get through. We're going to keep doing testing, but as of right now, I would say I don't believe you can get through a lot of these healing control decks.
Awesome.
Yeah, Yao is actually saying in chat right now. I think it's Yao. I'm gonna butcher his name, and then he's gonna hate on me. But he said I suggested calling strike this meta for dealing with the Soul Gorgers.
And that's so. I should mention that is what we have been playing. The Blade's Edges we've cut. We've gone to 3 Dravens and Culling Strike instead.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Get a little bit more blades from Draven or whatever they're called, axes, spinning axes, to have more discard to get what you want on the board.
Yeah, so it's for more draw. Draven actually ended up performing better than we had initially anticipated for the card. Maybe in this meta you actually do cut back down to 2 Dravens and run 3 Culling Strikes. I'm not entirely sure. Culling Strike is specifically for Soul Gorgers, as that's a very common card in the meta for healing. There's a bunch of other cards that it can kill, but the point of it is to beat Soul Gorgers.
Yeah, those cards are huge.
So I definitely would suggest, if you are running Burn right now, to include that to help with those control matchups, especially if everyone is playing it.
That makes sense. Now the counter that, and if you said this whenever I was disconnecting or something, I apologize, but the counters that you're typically seeing, what regions are? Is it pretty much just Shadow Isles that's going to be giving you the hard time?
For the most part, yeah, because that's where the most healing is Shadow Isles. So it's generally Shadow Isles that you struggle with. It's not so much region as it is archetype, but even I would say Shadow Isles in general, if I was to pick a region, is absolutely the most troubling to see.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Cozer, any more questions on our deck of the week here, or Casanovas, or anything that we haven't asked you or talked about the deck that you feel is important to kind of point out?
No, I think we've talked about it quite a bit, right? Like we've mentioned how hard it is to play. It's very, very fun. Like it's a very fun deck. I suggest trying it out if you enjoy playing aggro. If you played, mono red and MTG and you loved it, then play this deck. Like this is very aggressive. It's very fun. It's difficult. It challenges your mind in different ways than a lot of other decks do, because you're playing a real different game than pretty much any other deck. You're entirely just looking at that Nexus Crystal and making that number go down and doing your very best to make that number go down.
Yeah, and I was telling you before stream, I mean, it is a fun deck. I did build it, and I did play one game with it. Like I said, I didn't get a ton of time here last week or the beginning of this week, but I got it. I had just enough Teemo Shrooms in deck that we get to a point where my Nexus has something like 2 or 3 health left. The opponent has 1 health left. I had nothing to do damage, nothing that I could have done to put any more damage on his Nexus. And it's sitting there. I think he had like 30 cards left in his deck with 15 or 14 Shrooms. And so literally he has, like, I have a 50% chance of him drawing the Shroom. And I was like, this literally is just RNG luck. Hopefully be on my side here. And sure enough, he pulled 1 Shroom out of the Nex to put him down to 0. And that felt great, but I was like, I am not piloting this right at all. But it was a lot of fun. I would
say that actually is piloting it correct. You want to you take chances on Shrooms killing people. If you can put them on 1 and it's their draw, you put them on 1. You always do that. You'll put the Shrooms in the deck. It is worth putting them in whenever you can afford to put them into the deck. When you don't need to discard them, when you don't need the mana to play anything else, you should always be putting Shrooms in the deck. They're going to be dealing damage throughout the game. And in scenarios where you can get them to 1, you get them to 1. And a lot of times they will die. It's actually the percentage of drawing a Shroom when there's like 10 Shrooms in the deck or 15 Shrooms in the deck. Like it's generally pretty high that they'll draw 1 Shroom. It's generally over a 50% chance that they're going to draw it. So that's good odds. Like, you do like that. You're okay with taking something that's greater than a coin flip to deal 1 damage. So you're always going to pressure them down to 1 if you can, if they're on draw.
That makes sense. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like I said, it was just I'm sitting there and like it was the closest, I think, deck that I felt to date to like that face hunter type feel that I loved in Hearthstone so much, of just, look, put whatever the hell you want out. You can block with it, but I'm not going anywhere near it, and I'm just trying to hit your face, you know. And so that kind of was a nice stroll down memory lane, so to speak, from the Hearthstone days.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely the fastest deck. Yeah, I would say it's probably the fastest deck in the game.
From what I've played, it is a mighty quick deck. I mean, if you're looking just to, say, hey, look, I just want to try to climb as fast as I can and, get games that are like, what, 5 minutes long, something like that.
Oh,
That's the way to do it. But yeah, so I mean, since we've kind of tackled that a little bit, we do have a viewer question this week. It came from our episode last week, YouTube. The individual that asked the question was Mark Costello. It was a much longer kind of question he gave us, but the core of it was, he asks, I was wondering if you guys have any dream decks that you wanted to complete. So, Casanova being our guest of the hour here, I'd love for you to have the opportunity to go first as to, if there was a deck or a champion from League that you would hope that they were to import, what would that be? How would it play? Is there a deck with the existing cards that you feel like if maybe there was a little bit of some buffs or nerfs that you could really make a good deck out of it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I definitely like the angle of looking at it, where what League champions would I want added into the game? And I feel like someone like Swain from Noxus would be cool.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite champions to play for a really long time. Or even just kind of like more interesting champions like Fizz and stuff would be kind of neat to have. But I think in general, as far as like dream decks to build, in Hearthstone, I loved playing Freeze Mage. And I think like Ezreal is the closest thing there is to Freeze Mage. But I want something, I don't know. I feel like a more Freeze Mage type thing that could work in this game would be a Yasuo deck. So I really want a Yasuo. My dream deck is more like Yasuo actually working, because he's super cool. So I really just want like a couple sets to come out, and then like a really cool Yasuo deck to come in. No, Cozer, I think I see that that's like also yours. Please elaborate on what else you want in Yasuo, because I agree with you on this. Like, I just want Yasuo to work because I love the card. I think he's so cool. He's such a cool card, and it just doesn't work. And I just want it to work.
Yeah. So I know Kozer in our notes. I had me go next, but let's do you. Let's continue this Yasuo kind of talk. What are your thoughts?
Well, like what you said, like that would actually be a really cool idea. Like having like a freeze stun Yasuo deck, like that'd be so good. That would be so good if we could get one that would work. But the problem is putting too many freeze spells, stuns, and also having playable cards. You kind of go on a little bit of a, I don't know if it's going to do a much damage, because with Ezreal, Heimer, stuff like that, it really works well when you actually play spells, but not so much with Yasuo unless he's on the board. He has to physically be on the board, and sometimes with the current meta, with so much control and being able to remove stuff off the board, it just makes it really, really hard. But I really do want to see him be viable and actually be a win condition on top of just being a playable card. Like right now, yes, he's a playable card, 4/3, quick attack, 4 mana, makes sense. Stun a unit, he'll do 2 damage to them. If he levels up, 5 damage to them. It's cool, but I don't think it's enough, and I think that deck takes way too long to get on board. Maybe with control coming in, it might be a little stronger. I don't know, you might be able to get it to work in a tournament, Casa, but it's hard to say unless you know the decks that you're going to play against. It's hard to say unless you know the deck you're playing against. So.
Yeah, tournament format would be the only place you could get it to work, but even then it's just like... tossing
a coin
it's
here.
Pretty hard.
Yeah, and I think the other one I said, I just want to see more cool game mechanics, is just, like I wrote in my notes, like Morgana. Like, just doing damage to everyone over time or something like that. Like, it would just be cool to see a mechanic like that. Now, not sound super broken, but, like, if it did damage every round.
Cool. Yeah, so just each round it does 1 damage, but it should do, like, 1 damage to everything on the board or something. Like, everything on the board takes 1 damage every round. So it's like Baron Geddon from Hearthstone. Like, that kind of mechanic would be... I think that'd be cool in this game. I think that would work. And, like, someone like Morgana, let's... Maybe Mundo or something. It's like Mundo's thing because he has the like fire around him or whatever. Yeah. Like some champion that's got this kind of AoE damage.
I just use Morgana. Cool. I don't really. I played League for like 2 months. I don't really know that much about League. Yeah. You were talking about Swain, and honestly, Swain just kind of looks like Malfoy's father there from Harry Potter. That's the only thing I think of.
The update definitely looks like Malfoy's father, yeah.
That's the first time I heard that, but I'll never be able to unsee it now.
Oh, seriously, every time I see it, I was playing with friends that had mentioned it, and they would all be like, yeah, I guess. And I'm like, dude, how do you not see this? Have you ever seen Harry Potter?
We memed about that when the update first came out. He looked like Lucius Malfoy. Like, he's absolutely, it's uncanny.
But to be honest, when you said Swain, isn't Swain exactly like Vlad, kind of? Doesn't he remove health? Or no? Am I thinking of two different cards?
I think it would be dope for Swain because I think on level up, they'd have him go into demon form. And I think that would just be so cool. And he could do, I don't know. Because like the demon form, of course, in game, it like heals. He heals himself and then he does like a big burst of damage to everyone around him. But I don't know if they would give him regeneration in some sense, if they would damage the enemy units, like an AoE on the enemy units, if they would have him... He's known as the Master Tactician, so I think that just giving him something interesting that doesn't have to do with his League of Legends kit and just has to do with, like, Tactician, some kind of... something with, like, card draw, something with the ability to, like, maybe glimpse into your deck and pull a card that you want out. Something like that would be really cool with Swain.
I mean, that would be kind of cool. I mean, if you kind of want to play it like his alt in game, so since he's kind of healing himself with that AoE that's going on, and then he gets that big burst, what if instead of it like being like regeneration, where at the end of every round he heals, it's something like every time he goes in and attacks or something, he does like 1 AoE or something like that, and it heals him for however much he dishes out. But let's say if he dies, whenever he dies on board, the amount of healing that he's absorbed, he just dishes out to everything. You know,
that'd be insane.
That'd
be absurd.
It's like the ultimate board wipe. It's just because then is it like as the opponent, you're sitting there going, "Shit, I need to keep him on board. Like I just need to keep blocking him but I need to keep him on board because he will just wreck everything. Or you got to find a way to like, capture him, or you got to like recall him back. So I mean, it may give Yasuo decks like a reason of like, hey, look, I need to build recalls to get him back in hand, or I need to do something.
Yeah.
I think that could be kind of a fun mechanic. Again, would probably be broken like as fuck, but
it's like I had a couple of my other ideas. It was like as well, like this is kind of a broken mechanic. I don't know, but like Rakan, like you put Rakan out and his supported ally will get regeneration that round or something like that. Or even like I love Aatrox. I never played top lane, but I just love that card. I love that character in TFT. I don't know. There's just something about Aatrox that just gets me going. He is an amazing character, and I love his concept. I just don't know how they'll add him into this game because I actually just looked it up, and I don't know what's his lore. Who does he fit under? Ionia, Noxus, it's like Runeterra.
I think Darkin will be a new could be a new region. Darkin has enough in it that it probably can work.
Darkin Ionia? I guess, get him to stun every time he attacks a character with quick attack or something. Like, I don't know, it'd be a cool mechanic. Something.
Yeah, Darkin would be really cool because they have Kayn and Aatrox would be really good cards for Darkin.
Yeah.
Because Kayn is like Ionia Darkin, but like he basically having his level up turn him into Rost and having him be a Darkin card would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to think if there's another Darkin champion in the game right now, because I know there's Aatrox and I know there's Kayn. But I can't quite think.
I'd have to really dig through.
Darkin. I know Tryndamere is related to the Darkin, but that he's already in. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, see, like me personally, and it's funny that we're all talking like AOE because like whenever I like read this question, from Mark, I was sitting there going, okay, like I looked at it two ways, like, hey, what's in here and what do we want? And like during closed beta, like troll decks were my favorite thing. Like I loved nothing more than Teemo decks. Like the idea in card games of like I'm gonna beat you with your own deck is the best. Like go ahead, keep drawing. Like that's my win condition is that you just keep playing. So I kind of like that. But whenever I was there saying, okay, what champions could I bring into Legends of Runeterra that aren't here? The very first thing I thought of was a Mumu. And I was like, literally, apart from the AoE, which we've talked about, he is the perfect champ. So basically, I was like, look, make him a 2/4 for 3 mana, something like that. So he's not putting out tons of damage, but he has a good amount of health for that cost. Give him Challenger. So basically, it's like his Q in game. It's his engage. You can choose what he does. Make it so when he's attacking, he's doing 1 damage to basically anything that's blocking. So it replicates his Despair, his W in game. But it's not too damagey. And then what I said is like, hey, look, when he levels up, he would level up after doing like 4 AoE damage, something like that. That would be his level up condition. Make him a 2/6, keeps doing Challenger, give him 1 damage to all defenders, basically everything he did. But his big thing would be he also stuns defenders next round, which again, probably a little bit broken. But like when I sit there and think Azar, it's like basically like, look, I'm jumping in and I'm gonna stun you. Like I'm setting everything up for a win condition for a team fight. And I very much see him as a kind of a game-ending type champion. Like you pull them in, you basically bring their board on you, you stun everything so they can't defend next turn, and you just end it. You know what I mean? Or that they can't attack next turn. Like you're basically just continuing to drag it out. So, I mean, a Mumu and maybe Yorick are probably my top 2 champions that I would love to see.
Yeah, yeah. And to add more on Darkin, Varus, and Rost, which is a form of
well, Rost is Kayn, is Kayn, and then
which would still
Varus,
be cool.
Varus was the third one, so they could make Darkin region. Three champions. I think that's all you need for the region right now because they have PNZ has just 3. With Heimer. Actually, is every region 3? I know PNZ's 3.
What about Demacia? I feel like Demacia could have an extra.
Brahms 3.
Demacia, Lux, Garen, Fiora?
Wasn't Lucian, or is Lucian something
Lucian's
else?
Demacia, you're right. Okay, so there's 4 in Demacia.
Okay.
But still, three could be it, because PNZ only has Teemo, Heimer, and Ezreal. Yeah. So they could do Darkin, and they could have Kayn,
I feel like Kayn would be
Aatrox,
cool
and Varus, and I think they'd be awesome.
Yeah.
oh, have Kane be Ionia and
Yeah.
Darkin.
Yeah,
But if you play him in an Ionia list, then he goes to Shadow Assassin. And if
Yeah,
you play him
like,
in
that would
a
be
Darkin
really
list, then he
cool.
goes to Rost, and he has 2 different level ups. That'd
Yeah.
be oh,
It'd be a
or he
cool
just has 2
mechanic.
level, or he just has 2 level up conditions.
Yeah.
Just like in League of Legends, and you fill.
Ooh.
If you fill one condition first, then he levels into Shadow Assassin. If you fill the other condition
Ooh.
first, then he levels into
I
Rost.
like that.
That would be.
That's
I like
dope.
that a lot.
Really dope.
Why do I
That's
feel
a
like
cool
really cool.
mechanic.
Why do I feel
That'd be
like
super cool
LOR
idea.
has already thought about this? And if any one of them listens to this podcast, they're gonna be like, "Well, can't wait until we bring it out."
Oh, I'm tweeting at them immediately after this is done about adding Kane with that
yeah, for
in.
sure.
need
For
to
sure.
do
That's
this.
a dope idea. I never even thought
Yeah.
about that.
That's amazing.
really cool.
Because you could almost sit there and say, I'm going to build a deck that could easily be aggro or control. Like oh my god.
so
that
many
would,
options.
That
and
would
that's-
open up so many like multi-type decks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You just focus around
I
them.
think it's such a. I feel like they would be missing such a great opportunity if they added Kane and did not have that, because they did such a cool thing with Kane in League of Legends and
Yeah.
having these 2 different ways to play once you like level up by hitting the enemy, like different types of enemies. And to add him to Runeterra and not do that, I think would be like a disservice to the character. Now, I think him
Kane's
just being
so cool,
Darkin.
too.
I think him just being Darkin, as far as like the region that he comes in, that makes sense. I like the different, like the divergence of the level ups way better than him being part of 2 regions. I think just the divergence of the level ups, have him be a Darkin card, add the Darkin region, Aatrox, Kane, and Varus, and like that'd be so dope.
What about when we're sitting here talking about regions too? Like, what if they did something like they're doing in TFT now, where they're taking champions and they're basing their type in TFT around the skins? So, you know, would you ever picture something where they would have a region and you would have, let's say, I don't know, 2 versions of Lux? You know, like this card like of Lux would do this, and then this skin Lux would have different conditions. So you can still play multiple type of Lux decks or something like that.
I think that would be fun, but I think more on the side of like them doing a pirate skin for a champion and then making them in Bilgewater instead of doing like
okay.
2 of the same character.
Yeah. Like what
Okay.
they do for the
Okay.
sets. kind
Different
of.
characters
that'll
like
work.
they're doing for the TFT sets, and doing
Yeah.
skins to put them into different regions.
Yeah.
I personally actually would prefer if they avoid that and they just put champions into the regions that they're actually from in the lore and stay away from adding skins to the lore.
We
I
don't
think that's
need skins
Mhm.
in this game.
yeah. Like I don't think it's necessary in this game, but I don't think I would hate it. I just would prefer it if
That
they
makes
just
sense.
put in the champions and then put them in the regions that they are in the lore. That's
Well.
just how I would prefer it. I don't think it would like bug me too much if they use skins though.
That makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Any other final thoughts on that before we start kind of closing up here, guys? I know, I've been going for an hour and a half. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but don't want to cut you off either.
No,
No,
I'm all right. I'm excited about the Kane thing though. I think that's dope.
Yeah, no, that is a genius idea, and I hope that we see something like that.
I guess the only thing I'll add on to that before we close out is the fact that this game has so much room to blossom into something like that. And I feel like I'll say basically every week is I just feel like the development team is sitting here and watching all the content, the streams that people are putting out, and just seeing some of the stuff that's said on Reddit, and they're just like, oh man, I can't wait. In a month, they're going to see all of this stuff that we're bringing to the game, and their mind's going to be fucking blown. Like, they won't even be able to comprehend what's happening. And I feel like there is going to be a lot of stuff that they can add to this game, and I hope Riot can deliver, because I want to play this game for a really long time, and I don't want it to die like HOTS did, because that was very,
Rest in
very,
peace.
very sad, yeah.
I was say that one digs deep with all of us.
Oh, God, especially Casa. Casa was on...
Rest
Well,
in peace.
I did actually forget to ask you one question that I do want to ask you. What was your favorite team you played on when you were in HGC? Or just in
Actually,
general, in
my
HOTS,
favorite
your
team to
HOTS
play
career.
on, maybe Barrel Boys before HGC, when Mac was still on our team before he left for Denial. I love playing
Okay.
with Mac. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That
makes
or
sense.
actually no. The team that I played on before HGC actually died because I was getting picked up. I was either going to play with Heroes Hearth or I was going to play with LFM, and those 2 teams were the most fun I had was in the tryout phase and playing with those two teams just before
Oh,
HGC
really?
died.
Oh, you got to
So
try out
those two
on
teams,
Heroes Earth too. Wow. Yeah.
I was also trying out for Tempo Storm and all of that. I was trying out for pretty much every team in the league, but
Oh.
it looked like I was going to be on one of those two teams.
And for Twitch chat, Hot's Heroes of the Storm.
Yes,
Yeah,
I probably should mention that. Yeah. I guess the last thing is okay. Perfect. I was gonna ask if chat had any questions. He told me his name, and I'm just gonna say Twitch chat because I'm gonna say it wrong again. I'm gonna get him to tell me after. Do you think Riot should prevent pay to win? Is there a reason for the limit? Will it affect it long term, etc.? Stuff like that.
So I know we addressed this, I think, is Cozer, you and I, either episode 1 or 0, our thoughts.
Yeah, I think it was 0 actually.
Yeah. So my personal thoughts is I love the limit personally. My biggest issue with Hearthstone and other games like that was when an expansion came out, I felt like if I didn't drop like $100 or $150 just to get like the random packs day one expedition, or not expedition, day one expansion, that I was going to be so far behind, especially whenever, you're starting kind of mid to high ladder. Like typically I was around like rank 5, to 10 or something like that at any given time, trying to make the push into legend. And basically the people at those ranks, when day one comes out anyway, they're getting every card, and so the worst part is you'd have all these Theorycraft decks ready to go, and because of the randomness of it, I just felt like you're almost forced to spend it. What I like about this is, first, with a wild card, I take all the RNG out of it. Like I said earlier in the show, I wanted to build the Israel deck. I built the Israel deck. I had the wild cards to do it.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that's a mistake, that's a different argument right now. But like, I like that they're minimizing as much as possible the pay to win mechanic, and it's really forcing people to sit there and say, okay, I don't have the shards or I don't have the wild cards to make this deck, but the aggro deck that we talked earlier about today, you could find other cards that kind of play that aggro play style that maybe you could replace with. And especially when you're getting started and you're in the lower elo and the lower tiers, that's perfectly fine. And it gets you thinking in that deck building mindset, because I'm not a deck builder either, that it's letting you understand, why people like Gummy are putting things into deck and how things start to synergize well. And it actually made me a better expedition player than I was in like Hearthstone Arena or something like that, because I started to get that mindset of, when you're building a deck, what do you want to see in it? That kind of carries on across the game. So that's the way that I kind of look at it. I mean, Cass, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like that it is that they're preventing pay to win. I think eventually they need to kind of loosen up on it, maybe, because people are going to be really behind when they join late, or at least add more options for people to catch up.
Yeah, I bet it'll be bundles, like the starter bundle.
Yeah,
now, but
they could just do it that way. But yeah, as long as they add things for people to catch up for new players, especially when the game like full launches. I know it's open beta, so anyone can play, but on the full launch and when with mobile, like they're gonna get so many more players, and I don't want the player base to just like die out because they can't get new players because they all feel too behind on everyone that's been playing. So I think having a way for people to catch up is going to be really important. But other than that, I like how the models worked, and I'm definitely a fan of how it's going.
Cozer?
So basically, to add on that is that's what I think they really need to figure out how to do, and I hope that they do have some kind of plan. Once this game launches in mobile, it's going to completely change something. I tried to play 7 different card games on my phone, and I stopped playing all of them because exactly what Cass said. I felt so far behind. I was literally playing a mobile game. It was made by Magic. It was like one of their one-offs, not MTG Arena. And I actually played it 3 days after it was released, and I still felt behind. That's nuts to me. Someone basically went in there, dropped $200-$300 to be the top player in the game, and that's my issue with those. So, like what Cass said, if there's a starter bundle that gives you nine cards or something like that are champions or something, just so you can play around with them. They don't have to be the top tier. I'm pretty sure Legends of Runeterra is aware of which are their top tier cards right now and which are the ones that are minorly underperforming. with their data that they have.
And the way that I kind of think about this, and just to kind of echo back to a good point that Casanova brought up earlier, is that he didn't remember what he got from his expedition because he kind of feels like he has what he needs right now. I mean, the game's been out for 2.5, 3 weeks at full open beta, and I mean, we're all kind of in that feeling of we got 90% of what we need, if not more. So that doesn't feel too bad. As if a new player starts and they have to sit there and say, look, I got to wait 3 weeks to make a competitive deck. That's not or to make multiple competitive decks.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not a bad feeling.
They need 1 week to make a competitive deck, and then 3 to have the most of the field. Like it's not that hard to get up. And I think just the slightest amount of catch up is going to be fine. I don't think they need to add in crazy ways for people to catch up. I just think make it so, because a month of time invested to get to where you want to be in the game, a lot of people won't do that. I don't think personally I wouldn't have an issue, but I know there's a lot of people out there that a month of time investment to get there is just not going to be worth it. So giving the opportunity for people, if they want to spend the money, if they want a whale to catch up in the game, that's okay. I just think that making it so people couldn't whale at the very start and do that, I really enjoyed, and I am very happy that we've been able to kind of grind it out, and everyone's been on a very level playing field.
Yeah, and one thing that kind of would be nice is, to kind of tie it back to League a little bit when we sit there and talk about maybe ways that they can do that, is every once in a while in League, it's towards the end of the year, I believe, they release something, and it's basically it's called Your Store, where they give you 5 or 6 different skins that you can buy with real world currency, and they're normally pretty discounted, but it's always based on champions you own and you play a lot of, at least in mine. It seems that way. So it would be kind of neat if they did something like that, every year or every 6 months or something like that, they release a Your Store to the players that says, hey, look, I see that you are missing 75% of this region. Here, we will let you buy a bundle for this region at 50% off, and then you can just kind of fill your collection that way, So if they did something like that, like a Your Store kind of deal, I think that kind of would help too, especially if people are coming in, 3 or 4 regions down the line.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think they have a lot of stuff that's probably in store that we don't know about yet. That's going to make it, because that's the number one thing that Riot, when they released that video with the 10 years, when they talked about the shooter, when they talked about all of those games, their main goal seems to be to not make games that are unfair to new players, and to try to get rid of stuff like in the shooter game. They don't want wall hackers. They don't want aimbots. That is their main focus, is to try to be able to fight that stuff right off the rip. And I feel like Riot's really good at making fair games, and they really know how to make free-to-play games. They really do. This game is exciting to play. All you have to do, even if you're a new player on mobile, just grind, I think it's 10, 15 games a day, and then auto surrender some AI games, and in a week, like you guys both said, you'll be able to make a meta deck, more than likely. Spend a little bit of money. You might have to spend $20. That's it.
And hell, Cass is saying we should only be playing 1 deck anyway, so that's all we need. Make 1 deck.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's close it out. We are getting a little late on the time here, so.
Yeah, so again, guys, if you have any questions that you want to submit to us, best place to do it is going to be Twitter, YouTube. Obviously, we'll try to answer as many as we can on show. Cass, first, big thank you from us to you. This was super informative. I think everybody that's listening right now probably will have learned at least one thing, if not many, many more like I did. But obviously the biggest thing is we want to make sure that everybody that wants to follow you, watch your kind of climb for #1 in the future, follow you in tournaments, what's the best resources for them to find you and keep up with everything that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely follow me on Twitter and Twitch, and you can find me at Casanova Hots on both of those. And you can subscribe to my YouTube, Casanova Plays. I'm trying to start uploading more. It's a very slow start for that because I'm just starting that channel, and I don't have a ton of time to put the videos out, but I am trying to get as many videos as I can out there when I can. And I think as I get going on it, it'll ramp up a lot more. So if you want to subscribe now and the videos will ramp up eventually, you can definitely find a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, we strongly encourage, especially get in at the floor here, like you said. I mean, I think it's going to be only greater and greater information that we're going to see coming. So again, like I said, Cozer and I knew him from HOTS. Great content there. We're already seeing tons of great content coming from Casanova here and Runeterra. So by all means, guys, if you're listening to the show, definitely give him a follow, support him out, and cheer him on as he continues to grind for number 1. I know when you hit it, Cozer and I will be the first ones kind of cheering and jumping in the background. So.
Along with Bagels and Gummy in your chat.
Yes.
Especially Bagels.
Yes, Bagels, Gummy, all those guys too. Make sure that we give them all credit. Another quick thank you. You guys that have been kind of following the show for the first couple episodes, obviously, especially the video format, you've seen definitely a little bit of an improvement of our overlay. Our buddy Voodoo that we met through Nexus Gaming Series, he was another fellow admin. He helped us put that together, so thank you to him. Another thing, thanks again to our partner Mobalytics for the partner program. If you play League, TFT, Legends of Runeterra, by all means, check them out. They got pretty good statistics. They let you know how you're doing personally. They let you know what's going on in the meta, builds, all that kind of good stuff. If you become a premium member, I know that you can kind of even get more information, such as like, hey, if I'm placing more wards, how does my win rate change and all that kind of good stuff. For us, if you want to find more information on the show, you can find us on Twitter by following Poro Weekly. That's Poro Weekly. Weekly has an A, not W-E-E-K, week, like I'm not strong. You can also search for Weekly Poro Report on YouTube. You'll find us there. Subscribe, obviously. Keep up to date. That way you know whenever we post these. We try to go live by Friday. We record earlier some weeks like this if we get a good guest or if our schedules require it. But by Friday, typically, you'll have us and everything there. Cozer, where can people find you?
For my Twitter, that's Cozer88. And for my Twitch, it's twitch.tv, Cozer_88.
Okay, awesome. If anybody wants to follow me, ask me any kind of questions, Twitter, it's going to be at Smithel Gaming. You can also find me on Twitch streaming, twitch.tv/Smithel. I'm going to be actually doing some Clash in League of Legends this weekend with some other people, so we'll be streaming that. I'd appreciate you to come cheer me on and watch some, high quality silver play. So watch me make lots of mistakes. Again, everybody, we can find links to all the shows, anything that we talked about in the show here. It's going to all be in the YouTube video, as well as all of Casanova's accounts, his links, all that good stuff. We'll have that there too. Cozer, you got anything to add about that?
Well, so I'll also be adding the decks that we talked about. I'll add some Mobalytic links, and I'll be putting all of Casa's info, like he said. I'll also be putting Gummy and Bagels because they were the ones that created that burn deck. So we do want to give them a shout out because it was solid deck. I've played it; it's really good. Just not great right now until they figure out the kinks, but it will get there. And I think that's about it. I feel like there was something else, but I don't know.
That's fine. But again, Casanova, again, thank you. I mean, this was huge, so we can't say thank you enough, and hopefully you'll consider coming on again in the future to tell us what scrubs we are and how we could be improving.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I'm always down to send a podcast every once in a while, so yeah, make sure to hit me up. I'll be back.
Awesome. We appreciate it. Well, Cozer, again, appreciate you kind of sticking with me here as usual. But I think with that, guys, appreciate you for everybody that tuned into our first Twitch live stream here. We'll get the audio and video posted soon in case anybody wants to listen again. So
tomorrow.
With that though, I think we're gonna be out of here. So thanks again, guys. Everybody have a good night.